tariffs, not chapped anymore. If you are just joining me, definitely hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and if you are watching on a replay, I would love if you would do that too. And also join me in the comments and let me know where you're joining from. There are so many things to cover right now, and there's three really important ones that I wanted to chat with you about. And the first one just actually broke, which is this one. This story about Dick Durbin, the number 2 Democrat in the Senate, announces that he will not seek re-election. I would say this is a huge, huge, huge announcement. As you can see, this is 11:22 a.m., which was about 20 minutes ago. And I would say that he has been one of the strongest voices that the Democrats have had, in the Senate for a very long time. He is 80 years old, and that doesn't mean that his effectiveness is any less than anybody else. Let me see. He has been a representative. Let me see. I'm trying to look it up here. From 1983 to 1987, he was a representative. I'm trying to look up how many years he's been in the actual Senate. Let's see. He's held a seat since 1997. Maybe that is for Senate. Oh my God, that's a long, long time. He was the second highest position in Democratic leadership in the Senate since 2025, or since 2005. So 20 years of being kind of like in power. I don't know if this is a direct kind of response to what we were talking about with David Hogg, and his sort of coming into the vice, I think he's the vice chair. Hey, Vivian, the vice chair position with the DNC, and saying we're going to challenge ineffective leaders. And I don't think he's been an ineffective leader. I actually think that this is a person who has actually done a lot in his time. So very, very interesting that he would be saying that he's not going to seek re-election. But it is a good moment to say who will fill these shoes, because he's been there in, I believe, the seat for the state of Illinois for a very long time. So this is an interesting development. If you don't know what he looks like, this is Dick Durbin. So that's a very big announcement today. I think there's going to be a lot more of these kind of announcements coming in the next month or two, because if people who are in his shoes, who have clearly cut out his space, for history and making change, I think that if these type of people are going to be stepping aside to make way for people coming in, there's going to be a few more of these that are going to say this is the time and not wait. I think they're going to one by one start announcing that they will not be seeking re-election, so that there is time for other people to start with that campaign, get their ducks in a row, start getting the momentum that they need. If you haven't been watching AOC, she is on fire with her momentum. And if you haven't been paying attention, there are a lot of people who are saying that the Democrats need to start doing it differently. This is, I think, one of the first steps to people like Dick Durbin and others who have been in Democratic leadership to say, you know what? We hear you, and we are going to stand in lockstep with you, in support of you, but we're gonna get out of the way and make this happen. I think that if people like him who have been effective are going to move out of the way, there might be people who are ineffective who don't even realize that they are ineffective, and they're going to get clobbered by the people who come in and basically scoop up their seat. Outdoor gamers, how are you doing today? I'm okay. It's a Wednesday, it's hump day. I'm just trying to make it through because there's a lot going on. Let me give you another little update too. This is from yesterday. President Trump says tariffs on China will come down substantially. This is one of those things that we knew was going to happen. Okay, I'm so glad that you're doing really well. It's always lovely to know that as we are moving into the end of the week, that things are still going smoothly. I would say the L that we are taking because of Donald Trump and his ridiculous tariffs, it was like 245% at one point, I believe. This is a good sign that he finally sees that there the decisions he is making are just poor. Um, Steam stream, I absolutely do not know what you're saying, so I apologize that I cannot respond. I'm assuming this is in Spanish, but I'm not sure. All right, so this is a good thing that he finally is coming up against some opposition now because it's China and he has this sort of obsession with China. I would say that it's not good for us as a country, but you put your neck out there and it's gonna basically, I think what happened is he was like, we're so good, we're so important to the world, China needs us. And then China was like, no, we don't. And they went and got their soybeans from Brazil and they sent back our Boeing jet and they don't need us. No. And a lot of the world is coming to realize that, like, just because we say that they need us doesn't actually mean that they need us. So yes, very poor. Does that mean you're doing very poor, or you think that his decisions are very poor? Because I think his decisions are very poor. All right, let's talk about one more thing before we get into something else. Tesla profits plunge as Musk promises he's ready to step away from his role at Doge. Now, let me just tell you, I read this. This is from, I think, yesterday. And the headline part of the article that I read today was that it wasn't that he's stepping away, it's that he's going part-time. Okay, so I heard that he's not fully stepping away from Doge. He's just going to go 1 or 2 days a week, right? I think that would be like one of those statements that he was trying to say, like all the waste, fraud, and abuse is coming from all those remote workers. I think he's going to end up being a remote worker. Which is so sad. So he can only work 130 days out of any one calendar year, okay? And that means that he's gonna go 1 to 2 days for like the rest of the time of the year, which is still horrible because Doge does not need to be operating the way it's operating. And if he's just going to come in and basically put down the hammer and fire some people, or just make sure that he has some sort of like backdoor into all of our governmental systems, or just make sure that he's getting all of those governmental contracts that I'm sure he's making sure that he's lined up for and he's getting his $8 million a day or whatever they kind of calculated it to. This is not okay. This still isn't okay. I think I'm just going to go part-time because, my company is failing. Okay, Vivian said he sees it will not work. Yeah, I mean, we've all seen it. We all have seen it. Let's see, Brian Crowder says, we are 38% of China's exports. The next largest of France is 6%. We move their needle. I'm not saying we don't move the needle, but they didn't balk like Donald Trump thought they would. So I would assume that from all the things that I've been seeing, that he thought he was more important. And China said, no, you're not. So I think that's something to kind of, when you think of this sort of gamesmanship, because I think he thinks we're all playing a game. There is no such thing when the other person is, they got a better poker face. They definitely have a better poker face. Dev Arn says he's going to be rich regardless. He's a billionaire. I don't think we're arguing about that. We're just stating what's happening, right? This is not about businesses making money because we know he's in the business of making money for himself. He's just not in the business of running a country where all of us don't just get cheated. Basically. Brian Crowder is saying, yes, they did. They closed about 12% of their factories already. That's millions of Chinese out of work. Yeah, I'm assuming it did affect the Chinese. I'm not saying it didn't affect them. I'm just saying that the Chinese government did not kowtow, just like Harvard didn't kowtow. They didn't capitulate to Donald Trump, and now he's backtracking a little bit on whether or not they were supposed to have sent that demand letter to Harvard. Now it was sent in error. And then there was another article that said that, oh, we're ready to negotiate with Harvard. Yeah, they're ready to negotiate because Harvard didn't balk, just like China didn't either. Now, whether or not it impacts them, I would say, yeah, it's going to impact the whole world. all of the supply chains are impacted for sure. Just because one person decided that he woke up one day and, we're just going to make up some sort of numbers. I don't know if you remember that, like, not all the numbers didn't make that much sense. Hey to everybody who's joining me right now, because I can see that there's more people watching. Join me in the comments. Let me know where you're joining from, what city, state, or country. I'm very curious to know where you're from. Brian said they all will have, sorry, they all will. We have all the cards. Harvard doesn't deserve any funds anyway. Well, that's interesting because I was reading something, and I do not quote me, but a lot of the funds that Harvard does receive, what I was reading, goes to their medical kind of branch of Harvard and the sort of medical facilities that are run with some of those funds. So I think it was like 90 some billion. I don't know if it's billion or million. There's a lot of money, right? And I think 70 of the 90 was actually allocated for the medical institution and running programs in the medical institution. So whether or not they have money and that money is being spent on whatever their programs are, or they get additional money and that money is spent on additional programs, whatever that means, and them withholding it, it's still retaliation, right, for not capitulating, right? So I think that really shows the sort of mentality of the man is, do what I say, I'm in charge. Oh, you didn't do what I said, I'm gonna wag my finger at you and we're gonna take away your status as a nonprofit. Oh, you didn't want to do that anymore, we're gonna take away all this money. And so it's really just about the behavior. It's the retaliatory nature of his behavior that Harvard is saying, sorry, like, we're going to take you to court. And so I think that's the idea here, is not that he can't go through the proper channels, go through the power of the purse in Congress and say, Congress, we don't think that they deserve this. Let's reevaluate how much money we're actually giving them, where that money is actually going. And Congress does their job and says, no, we're going to take that away. And that's what I think is missing here. It's not that he has an opinion. It's that he's going, no, no, no. And he's doing this sort of executive thing that is not necessarily within his purview to do. Brian, you're from Kansas. Actually, and not to be like very stereotypical here, but we just watched The Wizard of Oz. We watched The Wizard of Oz, and then we watched, because my daughters had seen Wicked Part 1, right? And they had heard the story, but they hadn't seen The Wizard of Oz. So then after that, we showed them The Wiz also, just to see, which one out of Wicked, The Wizard of Oz, and The Wiz, which one they enjoyed the most. Of course, Wicked was the top. All right, let's see. Private contractors basically in Harvard has 40 billion cash that they need no taxpayer dollars. I agree. If they have a lot of money that they have given, people have given donations, endowments, whatever it might be, obviously they are one of the leading universities for a reason. They have the resources for sure. Stephen Klein says, Trump knows how fast time passes and that his time to get stuff done is limited. Every president's time is very limited because in that first 100 days, it's very important. It's also important because he knows that he's not going to be president again because of the Constitution and the way it's written as far as how many terms presidents can serve. And he also knows that the midterms are coming, and he barely has, by a finite control of how many Republicans in Congress he can actually whip up for all of the different things that he actually is thinking about doing, legally. So that's a whole other thing. So yes, every sort of politician's time is very limited. And I think that it's very important that we recognize that when we are voting, we are putting these people in power only for a finite amount of time. Jedediah Bell, except for reality. Okay, I don't know if you're responding to someone else or not. There's also Robert McConnell, I think I said that right, who said he has the power to reform all of this. If it wasn't in his purview, he wouldn't be able to do it. I would argue with that and say that a lot of things that he is doing by executive pen have not been proven to actually be within his purview. A lot of the things that have to do with the power of the purse are not in his purview. Second, or the last one that I wanted to get to before heading off for the day is this. Let me go. I don't think that's the actual beginning of the article. It's this one. California halts medical parole and sends several critically ill patients back to prison. If you haven't read this article, it's on californiahealthline.org. This is a very interesting kind of revelation for the California sort of prison system. They halted this court-ordered medical parole program, opting instead to send its most incapacitated prisoners back to state lockups or to release them early. So I hope that you go and take a little read of that article, because it's really interesting that they might or that they are pausing this program where some of the people who are critically incapacitated are being sent back into prison populations. And I understand that if a prisoner has been charged and convicted and should be in jail, that is their sentence. But if they are so incapacitated that they are unable to sort of walk, eat, breathe on their own, it feels very icky, and I don't know where a lot of people stand on that. So that's why I'm giving you this sort of moment in this live stream to sound off in the comments about what you think about critically ill or incapacitated prisoners being sent back into the prison population instead of being on a sort of medical parole. It's an interesting sort of time we're in, but I think when you're thinking about prisons, the most vulnerable are the ones who more than likely are going to be attacked within a prison system. So, and not to say that we shouldn't have some sort of humanity, because they do talk about releasing them early. But leave your comments, and I'm so glad that you guys have joined me today. Rodolfo joined us, and Robert says, you have to look into how much they spend on this program. A lot of these programs overspend by millions. That's what I'm saying. I don't know all the details. I want you to sound off in the comments, and I will meet you in the comments to continue the conversation. If you haven't joined my subscribe to my channel here on YouTube, definitely hit the subscribe button. Like this live stream if you found that it was helpful, bringing you some news and conversation. And I will see you on Substack Live this evening, Monday through Friday, Substack Live in the evening, Monday through Friday, YouTube Live in the morning. I'll see you guys later.